Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be taking a little journey back in time, back to the 1860s, a time of empires and monarchs, to explore this really fascinating document called the Tablet to the Kings. You know, when I first came across this, I was just struck by the title. Imagine, having the audacity to write a tablet to the kings.
Right.
It's bold.
Yeah, it's a statement.
It is. This tablet is essentially a message from Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i Faith, and it's addressed to some of the most powerful rulers of his time. We're talking about figures like Napoleon III, Queen Victoria,
Wow.
the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, the Shah of Persia,
Big names.
a real who's who of 19th century power. And what's really intriguing is that this isn't just like a polite hello to these rulers.
No.
It's a powerful call for a total transformation
Oh, wow.
of how they govern, a shift away from tyranny and towards a radical concept for the time, justice.
So when Baha'u'llah is talking about justice here,
Right.
he's not just talking about fairness within the existing systems.
Right.
He's calling for a complete overhaul of those systems. Remember, this is the 19th century. Empires were built on conquest. And the idea of equality between nations, let alone between people of different religions or social classes, was practically unheard of.
So Baha'u'llah is basically dropping a bomb on the world stage with this tablet.
Yeah.
He's not just suggesting these changes. He's warning the rulers that the old ways are crumbling, and if they don't get on board with this new vision of justice, they're going to be left behind.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from connecting this warning to the patterns of history.
Right.
He points to the rise and fall of empires throughout time, reminding these rulers that they're not immune to the forces of change. It adds a real sense of urgency and even danger to the message.
Okay, so we've got this powerful call for justice and a warning about the consequences of ignoring it. But what I find really fascinating is that Baha'u'llah doesn't just address the rulers as a group, he crafts individual messages to each of them, almost like he's peering into their souls and calling them out on their specific flaws.
It's true. Each message has a distinct flavor. Let's start with Napoleon III, a man obsessed with military might. Baha'u'llah calls him to abandon his imperial ambitions and lead with justice instead of conquest. It's almost as if he's saying, Napoleon, I see your thirst for power, but it's going to lead you to ruin. Choose a different path.
Do you think Napoleon III, facing such an internal division, would have been receptive to this message of unity? What evidence from the text supports your view?
It's hard to say for sure. But based on Napoleon III's actions, it seems unlikely that he fully embraced Baha'u'llah's message. He continued to pursue military campaigns and ultimately met his downfall.
Right.
But the point is, Baha'u'llah was planting a seed, a radical idea that power shouldn't be based on force, but on justice and the well-being of all people.
Okay. Next, we have Queen Victoria. At the time, she was arguably the most powerful woman in the world, presiding over a vast empire built on colonial expansion. And Baha'u'llah goes right to the heart of this, calling on her to recognize the unity of all nations and abandon the pursuit of conquest and division.
Yes, this was a direct challenge to the entire foundation of the British Empire. He's essentially saying, Your Majesty, your system is built on a lie. It's time to wake up and embrace a new reality, where all people are treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their nationality or background.
That is truly remarkable considering that colonialism was the norm back then.
Yeah.
But it gets even more personal with the message to Nasir al-Din Shah of Persia. This one hits close to home because Baha'u'llah was a Persian and he'd been exiled and imprisoned by the Shah's regime.
Right.
So there's a real sense of urgency and even heartbreak in this message.
There's a definite shift in tone here. Baha'u'llah speaks not just as a prophet, but as someone who has personally experienced the Shah's cruelty. He pleads with the Shah to turn away from oppression and choose a path of justice and compassion, reminding him that true prosperity comes not from power, but from the well-being of all citizens.
Finally, we have the message addressed to the President of the United States. No, we don't know for sure if Abraham Lincoln ever saw this message, but given that it was written in the midst of the U.S. Civil War, the timing is incredibly significant.
It's a brilliant way of making the message relevant to any U.S. leader, regardless of the specific time period. By addressing the president rather than Lincoln by name, Baha'u'llah elevates the message beyond a specific moment in history and imbues it with a timeless quality. Imagine the impact if Lincoln had read these words urging unity and justice amidst the horrific division of the Civil War.
It truly makes you wonder. So we've got these individual messages, each tailored to the specific ruler and their flaws. But when you step back and look at the bigger picture, what's the common thread running through all of them? What's the key takeaway here?
The common thread is this call for a fundamental shift in consciousness.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah isn't just advocating for better rulers. He's outlining a whole new way of seeing the world.
Right.
A world where peace trumps war.
Okay.
Unity trumps division. And cooperation trumps self-interest.
It's a powerful vision. But it's easy to get caught up in the historical context and think, well, that was then. This is now. But these challenges that Baha'u'llah was addressing, war injustice, inequality, the abuse of power, these haven't gone away. They've just taken on new forms.
Precisely. We might not have emperors and monarchs in the same way, but we have systems and structures that perpetuate these same problems. Think about the conflicts raging around the world, the massive economic inequality, the prejudice and discrimination we still see. It all boils down to a lack of unity, a failure to see ourselves as one interconnected human family.
It's a sobering thought, but it also makes you realize that the Tablet to the Kings isn't just some historical artifact. It speaks directly to the issues we face today. Would you say it's a blueprint for solving those issues?
I'd say it's more of a compass than a blueprint.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah isn't giving us a step-by-step guide.
Right.
It's offering us a set of principles: justice, unity, peace, the elimination of prejudice, to guide our actions and decisions. And those principles are just as relevant today as they were 150 years ago.
So how do we take these lofty ideals and translate them into action? What does it look like to live by these principles in our everyday lives?
It starts with recognizing that real change begins with each of us. It's about the choices we make every day, how we treat the people around us, how we engage in our communities, how we use our voices to advocate for justice and equality.
It's not about waiting for some top-down revolution. It's about each of us doing our part to create a more just and unified world.
Exactly. And it's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about striving to live in alignment with these principles, even when we fall short. And remember, we're not on this journey alone. We have each other. We have the guidance of Baha'u'llah's teachings, and we have the support of a growing global community striving for these same goals.
One thing that stood out to me in the tablet is the emphasis on education. Baha'u'llah seemed to believe that knowledge was key to social transformation.
Yes. He placed immense importance on education, not just as a means to acquire knowledge for its own sake, but as a powerful tool for personal and societal change. He believes that when people are educated, when they understand the interconnectedness of humanity, they're more likely to work for the common good.
So it's about more than just filling our heads with facts and figures. It's about using that knowledge to make the world a better place.
Precisely. And this is where the concept of service comes in. Baha'u'llah taught that service to humanity is the highest form of worship. It's about recognizing the needs of others as our own and actively working to alleviate suffering wherever we find it.
So we've got education, we've got service, but then there are those big systemic issues: war, poverty, climate change. How do we even begin to tackle those?
This is where the principle of consultation becomes crucial. Baha'u'llah emphasized the importance of collective decision-making, of bringing together diverse voices and perspectives to find solutions to complex problems. He believed that when people consult together in a spirit of unity and respect, they can unlock solutions that would be impossible to reach individually.
It's about moving away from that us versus them mentality and embracing a more collaborative approach to problem solving.
Precisely. And this applies to everything from local community issues to global challenges like climate change. We need to create spaces where people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different belief systems can come together and work towards common goals.
That sounds ideal in theory, but in reality, people disagree. They have different values, different priorities. How do we bridge those divides and find that common ground?
This is where the principle of unity and diversity comes in. Baha'u'llah taught that diversity is a strength, not a weakness.
Okay.
It's through our differences that we learn and grow. The challenge is to find unity amidst that diversity, to recognize that despite our differences, we are all part of one human family.
We often hear about unity in terms of race, religion, or culture. But what about political differences? The world is increasingly polarized, and people have such fundamentally opposing views on how society should be run. How do we even begin to find unity in that context?
That's a critical question. And it's interesting because Baha'u'llah himself addressed this very issue. He emphasized the importance of detachment from partisan politics. He wasn't advocating for any particular political system. He was calling for a new way of approaching politics, a way based on principles rather than ideology, on consultation and collaboration rather than power struggles.
So instead of getting bogged down in arguments about who's right and who's wrong, it's about shifting the focus to finding solutions that benefit everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that requires a certain level of humility, a willingness to listen to and learn from those who hold different views. It's about recognizing that we all have a piece of the puzzle and that no one group has all the answers.
It's a challenging concept, but it's also incredibly hopeful. It suggests that even in our deeply divided world, there's still a possibility of finding common ground and working together towards a better future.
I agree. And it's not just wishful thinking. We're seeing these principles in action all over the world. There are countless individuals and communities working to build a more just and unified society, often in quiet, unassuming ways. They may not make headlines, but they're the ones who are truly changing the world. One act of kindness, one conversation, one community project at a time.
That's a powerful reminder that change doesn't always happen in grand sweeping gestures. It often starts small in our own communities and our own interactions with others. It's about choosing to live by these principles every day, even in the smallest of ways.
It's about planting those seeds of a better future, knowing that even the smallest seed can grow into something extraordinary.
So we've gone from the courts of kings and emperors to the everyday lives of ordinary people. We've explored the challenges, the principles, and the possibilities for building a better world. Where do we go from here? So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the tablet to the kings. We've traveled from the world of 19th century monarchs to the complexities of our modern lives, exploring how Baha'u'llah's call for justice, unity, and peace remains strikingly relevant, even today. But, as we've been discussing these ideas, I keep coming back to the fact that Baha'u'llah wasn't just a social reformer.
Right.
He was a prophet claiming to be a divine messenger, ushering in a new era for humanity. That spiritual dimension feels really important to understanding the full impact of this message.
Absolutely. That spiritual foundation underpins everything Baha'u'llah taught.
Okay.
It's not just about tweaking the outer structures of society.
Right.
It's about a transformation of the human heart.
So would it be fair to say that it's not enough to just change laws and institutions?
Mm-hmm.
We also need a shift in our inner world, a change in our consciousness.
Precisely, Baha'u'llah saw humanity on a spiritual journey, evolving not just physically, but also in our understanding of ourselves and our relationship to the world around us. This new era, he believed, is marked by a growing awareness of our interconnectedness, a deepening understanding of our shared purpose, and a heightened capacity for love and compassion.
It's like we're being called to step into a higher version of ourselves, both individually and collectively.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And Baha'u'llah believed that these principles of unity, justice, and peace aren't just lofty ideals.
Right.
They are expressions of our true spiritual nature.
So living in accordance with these principles isn't just about creating a better world externally. It's also about aligning ourselves with our deepest purpose.
Exactly. And that alignment brings a sense of meaning, fulfillment, and joy that goes beyond the material world. It connects us to something larger than ourselves.
That resonates with me deeply. I think we all yearn for that sense of meaning and connection. But how do we actually cultivate that spiritual dimension in our lives? Is it about meditation, prayer rituals?
Those practices can certainly be helpful.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately about how we live our lives, about the choices we make each day. It's about seeing every interaction, every challenge, every act of service as an opportunity for growth.
It's about bringing that spiritual awareness into the everyday, the mundane, the messy reality of being human, not about escaping from the world, but about engaging with it in a more conscious, purposeful way.
Precisely. And remembering that we're not on this journey alone. We have each other, the guidance of Baha'u'llah's teachings, and the support of a growing global community striving toward these same goals.
That sense of community is so important, isn't it?
What?
We've talked a lot about individual transformation, but how does that translate into collective action and social change?
It comes back to that beautiful concept of unity and diversity.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah believed that real social change happens when people from different backgrounds, beliefs, and perspectives come together in a spirit of collaboration and mutual respect.
It's not about one group imposing its will on others, but about finding common ground and working together to create a society that benefits everyone.
Exactly. It requires a willingness to listen, to learn, to compromise. It requires putting aside our egos and focusing on the greater good. and it requires recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, regardless of their differences.
We've explored so many powerful ideas in this deep dive. If Baha'u'llah were speaking to world leaders today, what do you think his message would be?
That's a powerful question to ponder. Perhaps he would reiterate the urgent need for unity, for global cooperation, to address the existential threats facing humanity. Maybe he would call for a renewed commitment to justice, for a world where the needs of the most vulnerable are prioritized. And perhaps he would remind us that the solutions to our challenges lie not in division and conflict, but in the untapped potential of the human spirit, in our capacity for love, compassion, and collective action.
What a profound thought. We've covered so much ground today, but there's always more to explore. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. What resonated with you most in this deep dive into the Tablet to the Kings? How do these ideas challenge your assumptions about power, about leadership, about the possibilities for a better world? Share your thoughts, your questions, your insights with us on social media, and most importantly, keep the conversation going. The journey towards a more just, unified, and peaceful world begins with each of us.
Indeed. Let's continue to learn to grow and to work together to build the world we want to see.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better future.